The lottery code words for Saturday, December 5th, 2009 are disown, brewery, transmission. 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 Disown, brewery, transmission.
Okay, these code words that came up this time, rather significant because for the first time since I've started posting the lottery targets on YouTube with the code words, we have a code word that I actually had a dream about back on September 23rd, 2009. I had a dream about trying to drive a car that had a really bad transmission, and so when I woke up, the word transmission was definitely appeared to me as a possible future code word. I had two other dreams that same night, which sort of, each in its own way, implicitly connected to each of the other code words here. In one dream, I dreamt about a guy who tries to swap his dog with someone else's dog. So in a sense, he was trying to disown his dog. And in the other dream, I dreamt that I was at some sort of a British pub or ale house. Not exactly the same as a brewery, but there did seem to be implicit in that the consumption of brews, so possibly influenced by these code words. Dreams that don't explicitly give you the code words, but have some thematic, vague implication of what the code words were. The odds of all three dreams having in any way connection to all three code words in this way is highly unlikely, in the range of hundreds of millions to one, actually, if you figure out the odds of all the different code words that could possibly go together. So I'm impressed by this result. The movies that were focused on don't particularly connect to these code words in a very clear way, the way previous code word combinations seem to hit the exactly some aspect of the movie that they were focused on. But in this case, there were only sort of vague connections. In the case of brothers, we have a situation where the father of the two brothers comes close to disowning Jake Gyllenhaal, the bad brother, after Tobey Maguire, the good brother, gets killed, or supposedly gets killed in Afghanistan. And then In the case of Up in the Air, we have a lot of scenes where George Clooney and his girlfriend are engaged in partying, so possibly connecting that with the word brewery, as in enjoying what is brewed. But again, very tenuous connection there. Perhaps the closest one is in the movie Everybody's Fine, where Robert De Niro plays a retired utility lineman who works with transmission lines or telephone lines. So you have transmission possibly connecting there, but again, fairly tenuous connection. So I would say on the whole that these words were more about the fact that they were precognitive rather than that they were particularly fitting to any of the movies that were focused on. And one thing that is worth noting here is that the actors, several of the actors in these movies have connections to a couple of persons that I had worked with who were professional actors at one time or another in their lives. And in one case, one of the persons had worked with Paul Walker, who has been in films with Matt Dillon and Lawrence Fishburne, who were two of the stars of this movie Armored. Paul Walker has also been in a movie with Vera Farmiga, Running Scared, and Paul Walker has also been in a movie with Tobey Maguire, Pleasantville. And then the other person I know who's been a professional actress has worked in movies with Natalie Portman, who is also in Brothers. She was in Star Wars 2, Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones, I guess. And she's also worked with Leonardo DiCaprio, who was in a movie with Tobey Maguire and called Dawn's Plum, which I don't believe has ever been shown in the United States. And she was also in a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio was in a movie with Vera Farmiga, The Departed. And he has actually been in two movies with Robert De Niro, This Boy's Life and Marvin's Room. So the question arises, do these connections, is there some sort of quantum entanglement between people that allows subconscious psychic energy to be transmitted? And does the field consciousness, if somebody who is acquainted with somebody who is then in a major field consciousness, does that energy somehow get resonated, connected, transferred from one person to the other subconsciously? Possibly. Whatever it is, something caused me to have a dream about the word transmission. That's the one thing we can be absolutely certain about. And the question is, why did I have the dream about the word transmission on September 23rd of this year, almost 3 months prior to when the word actually came up on December 5th. Some skeptics will say it was just coincidence. If you give someone long enough, they'll dream about anything, like the monkeys at the typewriter who type every work of Shakespeare by random chance eventually. I think there's probably a little more going on here than that, because, as I mentioned before, we have the vague fringe connection with the other two code words in other dreams of that same night on September 23rd.